We are now being joined by dperry from Tel Aviv, who's an international affairs expert. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. What strategic purpose does holding nuclear talks in Oman at Tehran's request serve for both the United States and Iran, especially as tensions rise in the Gulf?
That depends on whether the Trump administration is sincere in being willing to not attack Iran as they have threatened, and instead suffice with some manner of a deal, even if it's just on nuclear enrichment. Remember that when Trump told Iranian protesters to continue protesting and to take over their institutions and to risk their lives because help is on its way, and I quote, help is on its way, that was not about a nuclear deal. That was about the fact that their government is horrifically oppressive and illegitimate and overwhelmingly unpopular, and it turned out murderous. Trump, after the bombardment of Iran in June of last year, said he doesn't need a deal. He said the entire nuclear program had been obliterated and we don't even need a deal, and I quote. Others were saying, including myself, that this is the moment to demand surrender terms of Iran because they were very much on the back foot. And those surrender terms should be not just involving nuclear enrichment at an above civilian level of 5%, an issue that Trump claimed had been resolved, but also that they should cease their development of ballistic missiles. You don't need ballistic missiles for defense. And that they should cease supporting, training, funding militias all over the Arab world that foment instability and export jihadism and war. Now, these are reasonable demands, and no country has the right to interfere in its environment this way. And Trump had no interest in that. So if the talks right now are just about the nuclear issue, I'm puzzled. If they're about the bigger issue, that might make some sense. But in any case, it is a departure from the entire narrative of last month, where Trump warned the Iranian government that they would face American retribution in action if they massacred their own people, which they most definitely proceeded to do.
How do ongoing disagreements, such as Iran's insistence on limiting talks to its nuclear program and rejecting conditions on ballistic missiles, reflect deeper mistrust between Washington and Tehran, and can these be bridged?
Look, I should think the distrust could hardly be deeper on both sides. If America is consistent with what it has viewed as its role in the world as something of a global policeman and a leader of the free world and a protector of its allies in the Middle East, and that includes not just Israel, but the moderate Arab countries, mostly Sunni Arab countries, but also Iraq, then Iran shouldn't trust America, because America should be desiring regime change in Iran, which would be a huge favor to the Iranian people. Meanwhile, should the Americans trust Iran? That would be unbelievably foolhardy. The regime, is predictable in many ways, including that they are not beholden to the truth in their international relations and declarations. So the mistrust is obviously there. Why Iran wants to limit it to nuclear is clear. Iran would limit it to discussing what day of the week it is if they only could. Question is why the U.S. would suffice with that. And I think the answer may be rather unfortunate for anyone who would like to see a free and democratic Iran, which is, for 80 years in the U.S., we have had a bipartisan consensus that we should promote democracy and we should prefer democracies, and that in general, all people want freedom, and freedom begets prosperity. Trump has blown that up. Trump prefers autocracies. He loves dictators if they're winners. He disdains America's democratic allies, mocks them, and in the case of Denmark, even threatened force implicitly if they didn't give him Greenland. I mean, Trump is a whole other thing, and he may not necessarily care that much if the regime in Iran falls. This is a real ace in a hole for the Islamic Republic. They may be thinking, and I assess that they are, that if they throw Trump a bone, if they maybe get rid of some expendable officials, if they agree to, limit nuclear enrichment, maybe he lets them survive. But for the countries of the region and for the people of Iran, letting the Islamic Republic survive would be a lamentable missed opportunity and a huge disservice to humanity at large.
And given that previous round of talks we've only heard that there's been some, but not conclusive progress from previous talks. What realistic outcomes can we expect from this time round? And would it be a de-escalation framework for future deals or something more substantive?
What Iran wants is for the threat of force against them to be taken off the table, despite the fact that they massacred untold thousands of people in stamping out the protests. Any kind of deal that achieves that for Iran would be a betrayal by the West of the obligations implicit from Trump's having encouraged protesters to go out there, apparently to go out there and be killed. So that is what Iran wants. A plausible way out, I suppose, would be if Iran were to agree to limit nuclear enrichment to, let's say, 5%. And that would be civilian usage. Anything above 5% or significantly above it is indefensible as civilian. You don't need it for civilian use. And Trump could spin that into a big success. It's conceivable that he tried to do that. All of that would be counter to the logic that Trump himself deployed in his first term when he walked away from the nuclear deal, basically saying Iran couldn't be trusted. And by the way, that was a terrible mistake because at the time, most foreign intelligence agencies, including Israel's Mossad, the UN nuclear agency, said Iran was abiding by the terms of that deal. As a result of the US walking away from the deal because Obama had done the deal, Iran resumed enrichment and became a nuclear threshold state, which required the war last June. So it's a little bit difficult to trust Trump to prosecute these matters in a way that is strategic and thoughtful and even genuine. Trump is probably going to try to come up with something that he can spin as a massive success and claim it's the 9th war that he has stopped or prevented.
Thank you, Dan.